welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to be talking about men at the movies, specifically men in movies. But before I get into it, please subscribe to this channel, ring that bell icon to be notified when I post new videos. Also be sure to hit the thumbs up button if you like this video, and please share with your friends. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get into it. So after looking at this article that I found on Bounding Into Comics, you have all these movies coming out with a lot of the men seemingly softened, very soft, gentle touch men. Now that's fine, men are capable of being soft and gentle. It's a possibility, it's a thing. I'm a very big hugger, that's what I am. I'm a very soft and gentle type. Mind you, I know how to kick ass. I can beat the living crap out of someone that tries to bring harm to anyone in my family. I will tear them up. But regarding this article is that Jason Momoa is going to be leaving DC, from what I can tell. And generally speaking, it's kind of a sad thing because he's not the one that I wanted to leave DCU. Generally, it should have been Amber Heard. It should have been Ezra Miller, not Henry Cavill, and not Jason Momoa, and not even The Rock. Granted, I didn't like Black Adam that much, but it had its moments. And generally, The Rock being... Sorry, I keep saying generally. Anyway, The Rock being in the movies was definitely a fun thing to watch. It wasn't the best, but it was entertaining for what it was. And then there's the reality that it seems that a lot of the men that are being removed from these movies are just simply not being in the movies anymore, are very much being pushed to the wayside, and they happen to be very typically traditional strong men. Men who have, heart, power, muscle, all the things that make men fighters and things that make them strong. Honor, nobility, loyalty. Instead, they're being what's being favored are traits that are typically very distrustful. Things that no person who has these traits should be trusted. I mean, if you look at the Suicide Squad, not generally the Suicide Squad being the main thing that is being promoted all the time as a DC project, lets me know that most of the men in that project are usually pretty disturbed, and because it's the Suicide Squad, they're all criminals saving the day. If that's the only story you can tell, are criminals saving the day, bad guys being the heroes of the story, then you're not telling a good story, because of the fact that that's all you're doing is you're focusing on bad guys doing good instead of simply telling a story of heroes doing good. People choosing not to do wrong all the time and simply out of nowhere being forced to do good. Granted, the Suicide Squad actually redeemed a lot of the villainous characters, but it just doesn't make sense. One second. Sorry. There was an ad in the background. Anyway, a lot of the things that I've seen is that they've removed Henry Cavill. They removed Jason Momoa. They removed The Rock. Heck, at Marvel, they removed Chris Pratt, from what I can tell. I mean, there's no real clear sign whether he's actually fully gone, but this being pretty much his last movie with Guardians of the Galaxy coming to being the last one from him as the main character, it's very clear that they're not going to... I don't think they want to actually bring him back or not, but I'm not going to go into all that. But the other thing, there's also the lack of Thor, the lack of... I'm going to talk about that more in a minute, but I'm going to go ahead and read this article. One second. Okay. So this article from Bounding Into Comics, written by John F. Trent, naturally. A new rumor claims that Jason Momoa will exit the role of Aquaman because the upcoming sequel is reportedly terrible. Alleged Scooper Twitter user Viewer Anon claimed test screenings for Aquaman in the Lost Kingdom are not looking great. As reported by Cosmic Book News, in a now deleted tweet, Viewer Anon wrote, "I'll be honest, we're half a dozen test screenings in, and it's not looking great. I've consistently heard over the last half year or so that it's boring, not as good as the first, and potentially one of the worst DCEU movies." Now, as other YouTubers have talked about, they've said how it's not the best, obviously, and yeah, it's true, it wasn't the best movie, but I will say, it definitely had some epic moments, and it honestly was a fun story. And with Jason Momoa, I think he's an awesome dude to the degree that he can be while living in Hollywood. But then you have all these different things going on. You have, okay, The user previously claimed the film's test reactions were okay, pretty similar to the first back in December. The user wrote, Aquaman 2 has tested a bunch. Reactions, okay, pretty similar to the first. Okay. So, viewer Anon. This was the original tweet of that. And this is where it continues. When confronted on the previous claim, viewer Anon responded, I was trying to be as positive as possible, so as not to worry people. I was also comparing it to Aquaman's final reaction versus the more positive test screening scores I've heard. And so it continues. Yeah, that's the tweet. Okay, so regardless of another scooper, BSL appeared to be corroborative. 1 second. Sorry, I had to blow my nose. So, it continues here. There's a reason I've been avoiding any questions about Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, but since viewer Anon put it out there, it brings me no joy to back him up and tell you that test screenings for this film have not been good. Really hoping Juan fixes his work before December, the scooper added. Okay, so yeah, that's the original tweet. The scooper added in a follow-up tweet, I heard that something that almost never happened in test screenings happened with this movie. They're really going to need to fix this one fast. So it's that's the tweet. Okay. Viewer Anon responded, writing, this is one of the bad things about being a scooper. I don't want to on the movies, but at a certain point, when people know that there have been a lot of test screenings, or our silence becomes pretty telling. I like Juan. I know he has had a rough time on this one. I hope it works out. BSL would also be confronted with his previous claim from July that test screenings were mostly positive. Okay. He explained this alleged new scoop, saying, I have no clue. I heard mixed to positive back then, and last week I heard nothing but bad things. BSL and viewer Anon were not the only ones to claim Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. So I keep getting lost. The Lost Kingdom, not the Last Kingdom. Okay. It's terrible. I keep getting words or claims that it's terrible. The Anchor's Jeff Snyder also claimed that this movie is terrible, but he also asserts that the film being terrible is why Jason Momoa will become Lobo and James Gunn's new DCU going forward. Now, personally, I actually always thought that he should have played Lobo. When I first saw him being casted, I was like, hey, he would look great as Lobo. Heck, he already kind of had the makeup when he played Khal Draco. I didn't watch the show. I only watched trailers and clips. And I saw a few episodes whenever I was, like, when there's nothing to watch. But I didn't really watch and observe the show to its entirety. So yeah, I guess I did watch it, but not like what everyone else says when they say, well, anyway, I hear it's terrible, and that's why Momoa is going to be going with Lobo going forward. Okay. But they can't say that yet because it would be a lame duck. And DC is hoping to wring another billion out of the box office. First one was awful too, so not a huge surprise. Okay, so the idea that the film is doing terribly with test audiences shouldn't come as a surprise. Jason Momoa recently revealed the film contains a giant lecture about climate change. And yeah, personally, I think that is kind of an Aquaman thing. I'm not going to lie. That personally, I think that climate change is not really a major thing. I believe that it, to a degree, is happening, but I believe that people blow it out of proportion. But that's just my perspective. I'm not going to talk about that. Anyway, so he told Variety, we'll have Aquaman, which is funny. The beautiful thing is that me and my partner wrote the first treatment for it, about a 55-page treatment, and a lot of it has to deal with me talking to the UN, expediting what's going to be happening with the melting of the ice caps. There's no far-off galaxy coming to destroy us, and, many YouTubers already talked about this, but the basic fact is they're talking about how he's not going to be fighting a real war, but fighting simply... Aquaman's going to be fighting essentially a threat that's basically in the mind. It's the mind's eye kind of threat. It's philosophical. It's not really a real threat. It's a geopolitical threat that's not going to be necessary to fight. I swear, if I see majority of the film in a courtroom, I'll be annoyed. That's if I even watch the film. I'm honestly on the edge of not watching most of these because of the fact that I'd rather just see the rebooted DC Universe If this is going to be the end of this one, it doesn't look good, especially if you don't have Superman in the end as well. Like, they've removed Superman entirely, it seems. So it's kind of getting to the point where it's like, what's the point? It's not really DC at this point. It's just a bunch of actors playing characters that are not even resembling the originals. I mean, heck, even his new suit, it just looks like a diver suit with a little bit of a Aquaman A on it. Like, it's not much. Anyway, I'm gonna keep going. As for Momoa leaving the role of Aquaman, he indicated that that was not going to happen, telling Variety, "I'll always be Aquaman. Ain't anyone coming in there and taking shit. There might be some other characters too. I can play other things too. I can be funny and savage and charming." Okay. He reiterated this to Deadline. "I love James Gunn, and so there's going to be some really cool things. What they're going to do with DC, and I definitely will be in more than just one. There's room for me to play a couple different roles. I've seen other actors do it. Yeah, I want a shot," he said. So, my perspective is that what I'm seeing is a sheer lack of men in the movies anymore. I mean, you had, sure, a few good ones, but they're not even within the main, like, heroic, storytelling. I mean, you have right now the biggest superhero companies, Marvel and DC, not even having Superman as the forefront, the main character. A lot of these movies coming out, the only ones I've seen that really have the epitome of, a manly man. The epitome of a manly man, you have the Samaritan, you have the Reacher series, you have a bunch of there was a sci-fi movie that came out with Chris Pratt. I can't even remember the name of it. And honestly, it wasn't that bad. I'm not a huge fan of that. Right now, I'm really fully immersed in superhero movies and sci-fi and fantasy. That's my genre right now. And I'm really just wanting to see more of that. But it seems if I want to get any of that, I have to either produce it myself or watch a bunch of independent stuff, and that's great, but I like these iconic characters. I like Superman, I like Batman, I like DC in general, and it's difficult to see them completely just tossed to the side, treated as though they're nothing. So personally, if you're gonna create something, I hope to see a strong-looking Superman. Granted, people will all say Superman doesn't have to be all muscular to be. No, he has to be muscular. I swear. I mean, I just can't stress that enough. I need to see a proper Superman, proper Wonder Woman, a proper Batman, looking like comic book characters. That was one of the best parts about the Snyderverse, was that they had this casting that was perfection. Granted, Gal Gadot may not have been the best casting, but she worked her way through it, and she got in shape. She looked great, and her acting was not the best, but that's because what can you do? You make do with the script that you're given, and obviously, she wasn't given the best script. And honestly, she did great playing the role. I like hearing that accent. I love Middle Eastern accents, and generally I love Israeli accents. It's just gorgeous. Anyway, that's all I'm going to talk about in this video. If you like this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button down below. Please subscribe to this channel and ring that bell icon to be notified when I post new videos. Anyway, thank you for watching. Goodbye, and God bless.